Hello, we start very basic. Do you mind telling us what you do? You can also tell us who you are,
Sure.
but you don't have to.
Okay, I'm happy to tell you. My name is Florian Glatz, and I'm a crypto lawyer. I've been in the space full-time since 2014. Before, I've been just curious about Bitcoin. But then 2014, Ethereum came around, and it totally changed the narrative of what you can actually do with this technology. It's not just currency. It's really everything, right? Every kind of computation can be done in this trustless, decentralized manner. And coming from a legal background, I just quickly realized how it could completely disrupt the law. But I also realized how it could challenge regulations that are designed not with a decentralization, but with a centralization mindset. Basically assuming that there is always some intermediary that can be addressed with regulation. And blockchain allows for the emergence of decentralized protocols, decentralized autonomous organizations, and infrastructure that is not based on intermediation, but disintermediation, where you actually have the users of a platform also governing the platform. And so this new paradigm was incredibly fascinating to me, and it drew me into the space. And yeah, I mean, the rest is history, right? So the space grew, more and more amazing people joined and are building what today we can just, I think, admire as being the most disruptive stuff we've seen in, I don't know, maybe centuries. I don't know. It's really, I think it's still too early to say how historical everything is, but I think everybody here at EthCC feels that, I don't know, we're making history. So yeah, it's awesome to be a part of this community and to contribute in some form to the success of everything that we do. And I think the ability to understand the old world and how it works based on laws and regulators enforcing those laws is becoming increasingly important. It has always played a role since the beginning. So in Germany, where I'm originally from and where I'm based in Berlin, the financial regulator has recognized Bitcoin as a financial instrument already in 2013. So there are no Bitcoin ATMs in Germany, for example, for the simple reason that BaFin classified Bitcoin as a financial instrument. So if you want to provide Bitcoin ATM services, you basically need a banking license. So nobody has that who is interested in Bitcoin, so it's just not there, right? If you go to Austria or Switzerland, where this isn't the case, there are a lot of Bitcoin ATMs, right? And so regulation has always had a big impact on the space. But now with DeFi, which is really, you know, the brainchild of the Ethereum community more than anyone else's, I think, we're entering into a new stage of regulatory oversight. And so I'm really working at this interface, and it's incredibly exciting. Yeah.
That's an awesome answer. Thanks. Yes, to follow up on that, how can we imagine your day-to-day? So do you work for a specific protocol, or do you work in the public space?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm doing mainly two things. On the one hand, I'm kind of working for the community in the sense that I talk to regulators a lot. That is a work that I've done unpaid so far for many years now, actually. And I'm doing it simply because I feel that somebody has to do it. And there are a growing number of lawyers interested in the space and also looking favorably at the innovative aspect and not as much at the, you know, riskier or more shady aspects of it, right? The DeFi and all this stuff, it can enable both good and bad use cases, but I think more and more lawyers are joining that rather look at the good stuff. And so this is a great development, but still I think the direct relationship to regulators and lawmakers is still very underdeveloped by the community, right? The community is rather talking about how everything they do is unstoppable and cannot be censored. And so, also now we have DAOs, so we don't even need legal entities anymore. So who cares about the regulators, right? So I take it upon myself, together with other really cool people in the space, to take over that function that I think the community needs. And on the other hand, I do in fact work with some protocols that just need very specific advice of basically, how to build a DAO, how to launch a decentralized protocol, how to do it in a way where, you can navigate this complex compliance landscape, which is, it's global by nature, right? You need to look at the US, you need to look at Europe, you need to look at China, India. All these regions and countries come up with their own regulatory schemes, and if you're launching a project in the space, you need some legal advice. So I provide that too. That's what I do on the day-to-day. So to be more concrete, end of last year, the European Commission leaked a proposal for a all-encompassing regulation of crypto assets in Europe. It's called MiCA, which stands for Markets in Crypto Assets. It's a very comprehensive, all-encompassing set of rules that regulate primarily stablecoins, but also ICOs, NFTs, liquidity mining schemes, decentralized exchanges, centralized exchanges. Everything you can imagine is in that thing. And unfortunately, it was drafted in basically in the summer of 2019, more or less, which was kind of before DeFi took off the way it does now. And so it doesn't really address DeFi in a way where a decentralized project can actually comply with all the requirements that are stipulated in this draft proposal by the Commission. And so I took it upon myself, together with other people in the space, other lawyers, to actually reach out to the Commission, to reach out to the Member State Council, to the European Parliament, and actually educate them about the existence of DeFi and the narrative behind it, the positive narratives, right? Not the terrorism financing stuff that is being pushed by banks and other incumbents, but actually the ability for financial inclusion, for a more transparent financial system, the aspect of composability, the power of permissionless innovation, all these like positive things, right? They didn't know about. And so almost on a daily basis, we had calls during the Corona time with European institutions, and trying to show them that there is, this emerging thing where actually a lot of innovators are in Europe, right? A lot of projects come from Europe. And now the EU is pushing a regulation that would make most of that stuff illegal and impossible to become actually legalized, and kind of forcing it into a framework of centralized finance, really, where it doesn't really fit into at all by nature. And so, I'm just having a lot of conversations with those kinds of people, and speaking their language, like bridging this gap. That's my vocation, I would say, and my passion. And that's great.
Sounds like a tough job, honestly.
Yeah, it's tough, but it's rewarding, right? Because now with this MiCA proposal, we actually were successful in bringing in a few considerations and modifications to the actual text that says, if a project is sufficiently decentralized, then it is not captured by that regulation, for example. It was toned down a little bit later because so it's really interesting, right? There is an active kind of fight going on behind the scenes where certain powerful groups are trying to keep DeFi down, and they try to push it into a corner of, with the Silk Road and the darknet, right? Saying that it's just about facilitating money laundering and terrorism financing. anybody who's been at EthCC knows that isn't true. I mean, you have the most ingenious, smart young people here that actually have an incredible ethics and that actually want to make the space, like want to improve the world. I think nobody's doubting that. And so, fighting those bad narratives is what we did, and it's rewarding to see the success of our work. But every day something new comes along. So there is now, a few days ago, it was also leaked again that there is now a new EU proposal again on AML, so anti-money laundering laws. Which wants to address the problem of anonymous transactions on blockchains. And so they are just continuously tightening the screws on this space, which to some extent is understandable. So there will probably need to be some regulation, but whatever regulation that will be there, it should allow for those innovative use cases to be developed and to be to become fully mass market compatible, right? So that my parents can use this stuff too, right? And this won't happen if we don't actually engage with regulators, right? They, on their own, they will not understand it or do it because they are actively being talked to by certain powers in today's market that have no interest in this happening. So it's tough but rewarding, I would say.
Yeah, almost answers my next question a bit. Like, can you tell us how the regulators react? We hear how crypto people react to regulators, but how did they react to some of the stuff you told them?
So their reactions are, I think, more open and I think differentiated than one would expect. So if you talk to them directly and you find the right kind of tone, then they start to listen. And a few really, I think, higher up people in this EU hierarchy, which is such a complex organism, but some really higher up people, for example, when you tell them about stablecoins, which is in particular something that Europe is worried about because it challenges the monetary sovereignty of the Eurozone, right? When you explain them what's happening, that in fact, the crypto asset space is already, operating on stable coins in a major fashion, and that 99.5% of all these stable coins are dollar denominated, and the euro is already completely sidelined, right? Like even European startups need to operate based on a dollar currency because there's no euro stable coins that have any traction whatsoever, not yet. Then they realize, oh, okay, maybe we cannot just say, hey, let's make a digital central bank, digital currency euro, which is going to take, 10 years to develop, and this is going to solve all our problems, because in the meantime, the US dollar is going to dominate that new branch of finance. And so we need to allow for a regime in Europe that also absorbs and pushes to the mainstream innovation in the private sector. And in particular, this concept of privately issued, decentralized euro stablecoins is something we should actually consider as a positive and not as a negative, as it is being done right now, right? I forgot your question, but
how do the regulators react?
So more differentiated than we thought, and we got some exceptions into this MiCA proposal, and but I think it's really just the beginning, right? So I think what the community needs to realize is how the public perception of crypto is right now. And the public perception is not good, right? I know that's hard to see when you're engaged in all this yield farming and all these cool innovative protocols that are coming out. It feels like, wow, we're changing the world. But when you step out of that and you talk to regulators or politicians in general, but also media, then you realize that all they see when they look at crypto and DeFi is gambling, speculation, AML, terrorist financing, huge energy consumption. And that's all the narratives they are exposed to and that they then repeat. And when we look at the amendments that the European Parliament has proposed to this MiCA proposal, which comes from the Commission, and now then the Parliament makes amendment proposals to it, then you can see, for example, that the issue of energy consumption is really, really important for these guys, which makes sense, right? And it should play a role. But then if you look at their proposals, you realize that they don't understand at all how consensus algorithms work, what really, constitutes energy consumption in the blockchain and so on. And so a lot of the stuff they propose is just unworkable. It's based on incomplete knowledge. And so I think what the community needs to realize is that we need to do a much better job in creating positive narratives and spreading those narratives outside of the community to new people, right? It's not happening in a sufficient manner. And although, of course, DeFi is to some extent unstoppable, the people currently in power can easily prevent DeFi from ever becoming mainstream. Right, so it will forever stay a fringe kind of shadow banking economy that you can have fun engaging in. But even today, trying to, let's say, you've made major gains on some crypto speculation, and you now want to move that money onto your fiat bank account. In Germany, it can easily happen to you that your bank is closing your account immediately when they see a big transaction from, I don't know, some major crypto exchange. They just close your account because they're like, oh, that's for sure money that wasn't properly declared to the tax authorities and so on. So just close your account. And that can become the norm rather than the exception. And then DeFi will never reach the potential that it actually has. So I really liked what Vitalik said yesterday also in the speech he gave here at EthCC, saying, hey, we should also look beyond DeFi, right? What else can this technology do that makes the world better? And I think this needs to become also part of our narrative, saying that essentially, hey, open blockchains are the game changer. It's a new kind of infrastructure. It's not so easy to govern from the perspective of a nation state because it transcends all the national borders, but it's where the real innovative potential lies. Like, it has potential to unlock human potential, right? And this narrative so far is, we all know it who are here in Paris, but outside of the small group, it's not being seen. And that is a major issue.
Always so much alpha in there. Thank you. Yeah, so my audience is very widespread. Everything from minor to DeFi nerds to beginner. Is there something the normal person can do to prepare or to have impact or get involved?
Yeah. So I think the community should come together and create, and we already see it happening in some sense, create dedicated groups of people like me and others who can bridge the gap to the traditional world and explain all these crazy ideas that people have. To spread these narratives. So I think that there should be an effort by the community to do that. And we've seen, for example, in some DAOs, proposals for doing lobbying, right? So we've seen it with the Uniswap grants, Maker is doing it. And so this is something that is slowly starting, where DAOs are using some of the massive funds they've accrued over the past few years to actually pay people to go out and do that kind of work. And so I think this is something that people in the space who may be part of some DAOs of the governance to actually look for such proposals or find people that may be suitable to execute such proposals to actually do that work, right? It's just real work somebody needs to do. And so that's something. And the other thing I think is to maybe ask themselves, well, how could I contribute, right? Like, what am I doing beyond, aping into some yield farming schemes? What am I doing to make sure that, this is not just a singular moment in time where I can make these crazy, profits and yields, but how can I make sure that somebody who discovers this space in 5 years will also have those opportunities, as opposed to, everything being banned or completely made illegal or illegitimate, right? So how can we actually grow this as opposed to keeping it for ourselves until it's, shut down essentially? So I think that's something everybody could do, but I think we need to act as a community. And so coming to an event like EthCC is just really encouraging to see what this community is capable of. All the people who are part of the project, so not just individuals who are, maybe investing here and there, but actually people who are building something in the DeFi space or generally the decentralized use case space, whatever it may be. I think they should, if they don't already, start to get engaged with the changing regulatory landscape. So there is, when you Google and so on, there's a lot of emerging attempts to pass regulation that will most likely affect what they are building. Like, for example, yesterday I was at this really great talk from Angle, which is a new euro-based stablecoin. And I really want to see their project flourish. At the same time, there is this law now, or this proposal for a law in Europe to actually make their use case illegal. So, I was also asking, well, how do you plan to navigate this? And so they were for sure aware of it, but they don't really know how to deal with it either. They're like, well, we try to stay under the radar, right? Okay, that may not be the final answer, right? I don't think you will be able to stay under the radar. Especially if you want to be successful. If you will be successful, you won't be under the radar, right? So it's contradictory even. Me, myself, I've started an initiative. It's called the European Crypto Initiative. We're focused on Europe, a non-profit that is based in Brussels and is addressing directly the European institutions. And so what we do is talk to the regulators directly and make proposals for how regulation could look like that, tries to walk this path between empowering the permissionless innovation that DeFi makes possible, while at the same time giving the assurances to the regulators that they need, right? So we, of course, don't want terrorism financing. We, of course, don't want to support money laundering, but at the same time, we're all for liberty, the ability to have anonymous transactions. We don't want the government to surveil us, 24/7. So I think it's about trying to find a middle ground, and that's what we do. And on the other hand, we inform the community about what's happening. So that's why I'm mentioning it. Anybody who's interested in these topics, they can find us, European Crypto Initiative, and we publish everything we do open source. So everybody can look at it, they can comment on it. And we just post a lot of updates around, there is a new EU regulatory proposal, there's this and that. So If people want to follow up on this stuff, they can just follow our newsletter or Twitter or Telegram or I don't know, we have a million channels and they get all the information. Perfect. Okay. Yeah.
I think I'm already all out of questions, but there is a lot to digest and think about.
I talked a lot, sorry.
No, it's very much appreciated. I said off the record before, this is stuff we rarely get to hear, and we only get to hear something when something bad has happened already, not before.
Thank you very much for your time. You're welcome.